All right, good evening. Welcome to another Classic Comics livecast. So I am having a storm where I'm at, so I don't know, this stream could get interrupted. We'll see. Hopefully that won't happen. All right. So a pretty solid bunch of stories this week. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it here. So, of course, last weekend was Memorial Day weekend, and the box office for Memorial Day wasn't quite what people had hoped. So, this is from the Hollywood Reporter. Box office meltdown. Furiosa edges past Garfield to win Memorial Day with worst #1 opening in 30 years. The Memorial Day box office is no picnic this year, but it certainly was a roller coaster ride. Warner Brothers' Furiosa narrowly beat Alcon and Sony's The Garfield movie with an estimated $32 million for the 4-day weekend, with George Miller's latest entry in the Mad Max franchise taking in an estimated $26.3 million for Friday through Sunday versus an estimated $24 million for the animated Orange Feline. Garfield on Sunday claimed victory over Furiosa with an estimated holiday gross of, I guess that's 4-day holiday gross of 31.9 million, but on Monday revised its estimate down to 31.1 million. Warner's took the unusual position of not reporting a 4-day number until Monday, with the race so close and the headlines so bad, it's easy to understand why the studio remained mum. Despite Furiosa's victory, it still came in behind expectations and is the worst Memorial Day opening since Casper debuted to 22.5 million nearly 30 years ago in 1995, and that's not adjusted for inflation, according to ComScore. The stat excludes 2020 when theaters were closed during the COVID-19 pandemic. Neither film aced it with audiences, with each receiving a B plus cinema score. With no holdovers to contribute in a massive way to the Memorial Day box office, overall revenue for the 4 days plummeted to an estimated 128.3 million, also a 29-year low and down nearly 37% from last year per ComScore. That excludes 2020 and 2021 when the pandemic was still raging, though Paramount's A Quiet Place sequel was able to open to 57.1 million over the holiday in 2021. May has been a brutal start to the summer season as the box office continues to feel the impact of bigger tentpoles being delayed because of last year's labor strikes. Marvel Studios usually kicks off summer over the first weekend in May with a superhero tentpole, and this year it was going to be Deadpool and Wolverine. Marvel and Disney, however, had to push the film, which had to halt production because of the SAG after strike, back by nearly 3 months to July 26th. Neither Furiosa nor Garfield were ever considered to be the sort of four-quadrant tentpole that generally anchors Memorial Day. Last year, for example, Disney's The Little Mermaid debuted to 118 million domestically. Furiosa, a prequel that sees Anya Taylor-Joy play a younger version of Charlize Theron's titular character in the last film, had been expected to open to 40 million to 45 million for the 4-day holiday, but instead is the latest summer event pick to underperform in its launch. An exception was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. In 2015, Mad Max Fury Road started off with a 3-day gross of 45.4 million in mid-May. Miller's new film, which also stars Chris Hemsworth, cost a pricey 168 million to make before marketing. Overseas, Furiosa started off with 32.8 million from 76 markets for a subdued global start of 64.8 million through Monday, meaning it will need strong legs similar to Fury Road if it is to land in the black. So far, it is drawing few females, with males making up 72% of the audience in North America. Garfield, in which the title character is voiced by Chris Pratt, was financed entirely by Alcon. It cost a relatively modest $60 million to produce and opened in line with expectations. Overseas, where it began rolling out earlier this month, the kids' pick earned another 14 million from 51 markets this weekend for a global cumulative of 91.1 million through Sunday. The movie's performance was successfully or has successfully relaunched the franchise, insiders say. Was it really ever a franchise though? Elsewhere, Angel Studios continues to try emulating the success of last year's Sound of Freedom, but so far hasn't come close to doing so. This weekend, it is opening the faith adjacent film Sight, which is on course to gross an estimated 3.5 million for the 4 days for a seventh place finish. Back in the top 5, If is holding firmly at number 3 in its sophomore outing with an estimated 4-day gross of 21 million. For a domestic total of 63.6 million. The Family Pick's estimated 3-day gross of 16 million represents a 52% decline, a decent hold considering it is competing with Garfield for families. That's good news for Paramount, director John Krasinski and star Ryan Reynolds after If's soft opening. Moreover, 74% of kids say the film exceeds their expectations. Yeah, that's good, I guess. Globally, If is clearing the $100 million mark after earning another 11 million from 64 markets this weekend for a foreign tally of 40 million and a worldwide total of 103.6 million through Monday. The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes placed number 4 in its third outing as it nears the 300 million mark in worldwide sales. The 20th Century Disney tentpole is reporting an estimated 4-day gross of 17.2 million for a domestic total of 126.6 million and 298.6 million globally through Monday. And despite The Fall Guy now being available to rent on premium video on demand, its estimated 3-day tally of 6 million marks a drop of just 28%. For the 4 days, the Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt star rounded out the top 5 with an estimated 7.7 million for a domestic tally of 73.9 million and 145.5 million globally through Monday. At the specialty box office, Neon's Babes cracked the top 10 as it expanded into 589 theaters. The dramedy earned an estimated 1.2 million for the 4 days for a solid domestic total of 1.5 million. A24's I Saw the TV Glow placed number 13 as it expanded into 458 theaters, earning a so-so 642,000 for the 4 days for a domestic cumulative of 2.8 million. Hmm. So yeah, the box office overall continues to be down and to disappoint. But really, is this surprising? Because as they even mentioned in the articles, these really weren't the kind of movies they were looking to you normally would open on Memorial Day weekend. And obviously, this is because of, or at least mainly because of the strikes and all the delays. But when you step back and look at it, okay, Furiosa is a sequel to Fury Road, right? Which is itself, a Mad Max sequel. So before Fury Road came out in what 2015, the last Mad Max movie was Thunderdome, Beyond Thunderdome, when that was what, like 83, 84? So like 40 years ago. So then 40 years later, they do Fury Road, that sequel. And I think it did okay-ish. I think it was successful, but it wasn't like it was some blockbuster hit. And then nearly a decade later, 9 years later, they take the female character from that movie and make a prequel about her. Is it really surprising that this didn't do well? I mean, were people really that excited for a Furiosa movie? I mean, who was, honestly? And Garfield, look, Garfield, I mean, Garfield was popular when I was a kid. But the thing is, Garfield, again, like when was that Bill Murray movie? That was in the 90s, wasn't it? So I mean, you're talking probably close to 30 years since the last Garfield movie. And when we were kids, when we grew up with Garfield, where did we see Garfield? In the newspaper, because he was a comic strip in the newspaper. Who reads newspapers anymore? Right? So, where are kids today going to get exposed to Garfield? They probably have no clue who Garfield is. So, I just don't see how that would really have any success. Again, is it really surprising that didn't do well? Okay. All right. Next, what do we got here? Okay. Let me bring this story up. So this is on Gamer Rant or GameRant.com. So James Gunn's previous opinion on one Green Lantern writer comes back to haunt him. James Gunn's Lanterns project might be a fresh start for the characters involved, but the DC Studios boss hasn't been so lucky as some of his past comments concerning one of his new collaborators recently surfaced or resurfaced. The Green Lanterns have been a mainstay of the DC universe in most mediums for decades now, with the multitude of well known Lantern characters making prominent appearances in the comics, games, and TV shows, both live action and animated. However, there hasn't been a proper attempt at centering the Green Lantern Corps in live action since the infamous 2011 live action movie, a project so negatively remembered that even leading man Ryan Reynolds urged fans to walk away from the film when it was on sale. That historic fumble has been supplanted as The Flash's box office run was forecast to end lower than Green Lantern and marked more of a disappointment for audiences and Warner Brothers. And now Gunn is ready to take on the core once more with Lanterns. While the show, which will star fan favorites Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan in the lead roles, is still far from a potential release, the most recent announcement revealing the writers behind the project has caused a bit of a stir thanks to one name. Oh boy. On a Facebook post from 2012 discussing the then upcoming movie Prometheus, Gunn pinned a scathing comment to writing Damon Lindelhof, who was a co-writer on the film. The comment reads, quote, Lindelhof is close to Satan in my book because of the end of Lost. He's the Uri Geller of storytellers, a total scam artist with no integrity whatsoever, and a liar. I agree with every single word of that. I loathe Damon Lindelhof. I cannot stand him. The guy, as far as I'm concerned, Lost was the closest he's come to doing anything good. Lost ended was a big disappointment in the end. Prometheus was a mess. That Watchmen show was just crap. I mean, this guy, I don't understand how this guy keeps getting. He's one of these people. It's how does he keep getting work? He's never done anything good. Uh, This comment has become relevant once more as Lindelhof has now joined the writing team for Lanterns. Quote, yes, it's true. The Lanterns DCU series is putting together a crack team of writers based on a wonderful pilot script and Bible by Chris Mundy, Tom King, and Damon Lindelhof. A hearty welcome to Chris and at Damon Lindelhof as they join the DC Studios family. No welcome necessary for Tom King, who has been here nearly since inception, unquote. So if there were two names of two writers that I could think of that I loathe pretty much more than any others, it would be Tom King and Damon Lindelhof. I cannot stand either of these guys. And, I've tried to be positive about this rebooted DCU and try to uh, you know, have a positive outlook on it and hope that this thing would be good. But when you've got writers like this working on it, this is doomed. This is doomed from the start. This thing is rotten right from the beginning, and it's not going to succeed because they have absolute dog shit writers on these projects. And I just, oh my god, I can't believe they're doing this. Gunn took to Threads to share the news himself, while also going ahead to welcome Lindelhof to the DC team along Chris Monday. Some fans have come to Gunn's defense, hearkening back to how divisive the ending of Lost was at the time. While there are several reasons why no other TV show can be like Lost, one of the most prominent is the sheer popularity it had and the fallout from how it ended. The aftermath of the end of Game of Thrones comes close. Yeah, I would agree. But the gradual decline in fan support as the final season wore on made the latter less of a pain point. This, combined with Gunn's relatively low level of fame at the time, meant that he was liable and allowed to strongly criticize his contemporaries the same way many regular fans do all the time. Neither Lindelhof, who was also confirmed to be working on a Star Wars film alongside Ms. Marvel's Charmin Obaid Chinoy. Oh, yeah, they're just, oh, God. Nor Gunn has mentioned this interaction as of yet, and it's very likely that it will never come up again. It's safe to assume that Gunn's opinions have changed and evolved since then. Well, they shouldn't have, as he's the top brass at DC Studio, only equaled by de facto partner Peter Safran in authority. It's unlikely that Lindelhof would be brought on board without Gunn's approval, and his message via his social media account seems to confirm that he's aware and okay with the decision. Well, more the fool him. With the writers set, progress can start on Lanterns proper, a project with extra anticipation behind it as it carries on the previously planned Green Lantern series for the then HBO Max. Fans can only wait things out and hope that the creative team can work together well and deliver a home run, they won't, with the beloved characters and plot points they're going to be handling. So, I mean, I don't know a lot of details, but what has been said about this is that this is going to be basically like a True Detective. It's going to be a detective show, and it's going to be, it's going to have Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart trying to solve a murder, I guess. And I mean, when I think of Green Lantern, what I think of is like, an earthbound detective show. I mean, you know, uh, Green Lantern. When you think Green Lantern, you think like cosmic adventure, adventures in space, that sort of thing. But instead, what we're getting is basically a detective show that's going to be earthbound. I mean, why would you do that with Green Lantern? I mean, it's so friggin' disappointing. I mean, and I'm guessing it's a budgetary thing. They're doing this to keep costs down, but I'm not really that interested in seeing Green Lantern, seeing Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart like poking around in alleys for clues, and checking out crime scenes. I mean, that's not what I think of for Green Lantern. The thing is, there are plenty of DC characters that sort of detective story would work fine for, like Batman, maybe, but not Green Lantern. But of course, that's what they're going to do. They're going to make Green Lantern a detective show. Sure. Yeah. Well, this is going to fail. That is going to fail. And it deserves to. If they're going to hire Lindelhof and Tom King, then it deserves to fail. Hello, Adega. Thanks for stopping by, sir. Always appreciate it when you come by. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. All righty. And speaking of things that are tainted from the beginning, let's see here. So this is from Variety. Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy says a lot of women in Star Wars struggle with fan attacks because of the fan base being so male dominated. In a new interview with the New York Times for the upcoming Star Wars series The Acolyte, Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy said she is aware that women in the space franchise are often attacked online more than men because of the fan base being so male dominated. Female stars Daisy Ridley and Kelly Marie Tran certainly faced online harassment from toxic fans when the most recent Star Wars film trilogy was released, and now The Acolyte is already being attacked in certain corners of the fandom. The Acolyte is an original story created by Leslie Headland that set long before the events of The Phantom Menace. Hedlund, known for directing films such as Sleeping with Other People and co-creating Netflix hit comedy series Russian Doll, is the first woman to serve as a showrunner on a Star Wars series. Her show includes major new female Star Wars characters played by the likes of Amanda Stenberg, Carrie-Anne Moss, Jodie Turner-Smith, and more. As reported by The Times, a loud primordial part of the Star Wars fandom has pushed back in predictable fashion against the show. Why are there so many women, girls, and minority characters increasingly dominated the ranks of Jedi? Reads a comment on the Acolyte trailer, with others expressing a similar worldview. Some trolls have nicknamed Hedlund's series the Wokealite. My belief is that storytelling does need to be representative of all people, Kennedy told the publication about her support for Hedlund's Acolyte vision. That's an easy decision for me. Operating within these giant franchises now with social media and the level of expectation, it's terrifying, Kennedy continued. I think Leslie has struggled a little bit with it. I think a lot of the women who step into Star Wars struggle with this a bit more because of the fan base being so male dominated. They sometimes get attacked in ways that can be quite personal. Well, I mean, they're admitting that it's mostly a male fan base. So maybe you should make what the fan base wants to see, you know? I mean, Hedlund has already started to limit her exposure to online chatter about the show to block out any of the toxic fans, and the show hasn't even debuted on Disney Plus yet. Quote, as a fan myself, I know how frustrating some Star Wars storytelling in the past has been. I felt it myself, she said. I stand by my empathy for Star Wars fans, but I want to be clear, anyone who engages in bigotry, racism, or hate speech, I don't consider a fan, unquote. Well, you know, I mean, this has been said plenty of times, so it's not like it's anything new, but again, they in this article, they admit that most Star Wars fans are male. So when you start making it into a female centered brand, what's going to happen? You know, the audience isn't going to like it. So it's basically just them playing victim. And will that, Dega says, I'm so excited for the show that I fell asleep. Okay. Okay. So now let's move on to Blade. Let's talk about Blade a little bit. This is on MSN, or Screen Rant, rather. Blade's 2025 release date might be in trouble after Mahershala Ali's Jurassic World casting. The news of Mahershala Ali's likely casting in Jurassic World 4 has caused for concern among viewers eagerly awaiting the new Blade movie in 2025. When Ali was announced as the MCU's Blade in 2018, God, that was 6 years ago, the reception was ecstatic, as he seemed like a dream choice for the role. I agree, I thought he was a great choice. The Wesley Snipes era Blade films are mostly looked back on fondly, and the character helped bring Marvel Comics back into the cultural conversation. So it seemed like the combination of a beloved character and acclaimed actor was a match made in heaven. Yeah, people like those Blade movies, and even most fans like them. Most white guys like them, even though it was a black character, because it wasn't about him being a black character. And it didn't go out of its way to make all the white males around him into idiots or fools or wimps, etc. And it didn't try to make the female characters, it didn't elevate the female characters at the cost of the male characters. Anticipation increased even further after the new Blaze cast and crew information rolled out. Ali would be joined by talented actors like Mia Goth, which made the project more tantalizing. While MCU movies have had some horror elements, audience had yet to see a spectacle on par with the Snipes films, and it had been long enough since the last Blade film that appetites were whet for a new type of movie in the MCU. But now, thanks to Jurassic World 4's casting, all that could be in jeopardy. Given the potential filming window for Jurassic World 4 in 2024, Blade could be delayed even further. Blade has already experienced a lengthy period of development issues with numerous delays and various personnel changes, including writers and cast members. Release dates have been pushed back repeatedly, and in the event of Ollie's possible addition to Jurassic World 4, there could be even further delays if the next dinosaur outing starts production soon. It's bad news for audiences gearing up for Blade, but also it can't be ruled out that if the film continues to suffer more delays, then it could be shelved, while MCU executives try to figure out the best way to bring Eric Brooks back to live action. Although Ali recently said that Blade production was back on track, his announcement came ahead of the news around Jurassic World 4, so he can now have less availability for Blade. A film in the MCU is a huge operation that takes years to put together, and right now it's unclear where the production is at. There's a strong argument that it would be better to delay Blade to avoid a botched production and some of the frequent criticisms of rushing that are aimed at Marvel releases. But it's not all bad. If there is indeed less production time due to Ali's availability, then it could force MCU bosses in a different direction. There's a strong argument that it would be better to delay Blade to avoid a botched production and some of the frequent criticisms of rushing aimed at Marvel. Ali's presence in the new movie lends it a certain pedigree. So giving the film proper time and space to come together ensures the studio against any potential headaches from rush releasing it to meet its deadline for November 2026. The MCU is experiencing a challenging period amid a push towards quality over quantity. The much anticipated Deadpool and Wolverine is the one and only MCU entry for all of 2024, and 4 films are on its slate for 2025, with Blade among them. A period of just over 12 months is a feasible turnaround time for an indie movie, but the team behind Blade has its work cut out for it to meet that release date. The time spent anticipating the release will only serve to heighten the need for a quality movie that delivers the goods. Mahershala Ali is an Oscar-winning actor who elevates any film that he's attached to, so the casting is great news for viewers who want to await Jurassic World 4. The other side of the coin is that it could be the final straw in the new Blade movie's catalog of woes after a dismal half-decade of false starts and disruptions. While viewers still have the other acclaimed Blade films to remind them why he was such a compelling character in the first place, it would be disheartening if the latest outing for the legendary vampire slayer turned out to be a disappointment. Yeah, I mean they've rewritten this movie like how many times? Supposedly, you remember there were stories that I think at one point they had basically written the movie where he was almost like the fourth character in importance. They had all these girl bosses like his daughter and other female characters around him, and he got upset with that and demanded rewrites. I mean, and this is a mess. Blade is a mess. Captain America 4 is a total mess. I mean, how many times have they gone back to the drawing board on that thing? God, Marvel is just a shit show right now. Okay. All right, we'll stay Disney related here. And this is from Variety. Nelson Peltz reportedly sold off all his Disney stock, earning $1 billion after losing a proxy fight. Nelson Peltz cashed out his shares of Disney shortly after the activist investor lost his bid to win seats on the Mouse House's board, according to a CNBC report Wednesday. Peltz sold all his Disney stock at, quote, close to $120 a share, making about $1 billion on the sale, CNBC reported, citing an anonymous source. That would indicate that Peltz sold the shares in the days immediately after the April 3rd Disney shareholder meeting, where his bid to shake up Disney's board was soundly defeated. A rep for Triumph Partners, the hedge fund headed by Peltz, declined to comment. Disney did not immediately respond to a request for comment. At the April 3rd virtual meeting of Disney shareholders, investors voted to re-elect the current 12-member board of investors by a substantial margin over the candidates nominated by Trian, Peltz himself and ex-Disney CFO Jay Russolo, and a smaller investment firm, Blackwell's Capital. Peltz, in an appearance on CNBC April 4th, had threatened to resume his activist agenda at Disney if the company and CEO Bob Iger did not keep their promises. Quote, I hope this is not a redo of last year where we pulled out, gave management a chance, and the stock went down, Peltz said in the CNBC interview. He added, quote, whether we stay invested in Disney or not, we don't make those kinds of announcements. Peltz's Trian had at one time controlled 32.3 million shares of Disney, including about 30 million owned by former Marvel Entertainment head Ike Perlmutter. Disney alleged that Perlmutter harbored a longstanding personal vendetta against Iger. At the end of 2023, Trian's stake represented 1.8% of Disney's outstanding shares. In his proxy fight, one of Peltz's biggest complaints was his allegation that Disney's board failed to do its job with CEO succession planning and not vetting former Parks boss Bob Chapek, who was Iger's personal pick to take over the job in 2020. Quote, they all took Bob's word and they voted Chapek in. That's not what the responsibility of a director is, unquote, Peltz said in the CNBC interview last month. The board ousted Chapek in November of 2020 and brought Iger back on as CEO. In an earlier appearance on CNBC on April 4th, Iger reiterated that the Disney board's top priority is the CEO succession, and he said, quote, they're treating it with urgency, unquote. He also said Disney's long-term goal is to hit double-digit margins in the streaming business, which was another key point in Trian's proxy campaign. So this really isn't surprising to me. It is disappointing. I think a lot of folks were hoping Peltz would come in and kind of de-wokeify the company, for lack of a better term. Although I question how much he even would have been able to do. I mean, Disney, that stuff is so embedded there now. I don't know if there's any ways one person could come in and really fix it. He might be able to tamp it down some, but it wouldn't be like it would suddenly go away. But anyway, he has run up the red flag, so that is the end of that. Okay, let's go with another Marvel story here. Let's see, what are we at? 7:30. So this will probably be a fairly quick evening. I don't know, maybe 45 minutes, something like that. All right, this is from Fansided. Hopes for Doctor Strange 3 may have just gone up in flames. Marvel Studios have had a couple of up and down years. 2023 saw the studio encounter some of its greatest struggles yet, as two of its theatrical releases underperformed significantly at the box office. But the years before that hadn't brought its Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise its greatest success stories either. There have been plenty of successes, but with the franchise's overexposure via the multiple Disney Plus shows and the lackluster responses to certain shows and movies, the MCU hasn't felt like the unbeatable titan that it once was, at least not since the first couple of titles of Phase 4. One film that did experience outstanding success was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which ended up making over 900 million at the box office. There was an implication in the post-credits scene that there would be a sequel, and after numbers like that, it would be ridiculous for Marvel not to return to that series. However, the not to part of that sentence are the vibes that fans are getting from Doctor Strange 3 right now, and in a recent interview with Stephen Strange himself, uh, has only added to the fans' concerns. Actor Benedict Cumberbatch recently spoke to The Playlist about his upcoming Netflix miniseries Eric, but he also made some time to speak about his role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Doctor Strange. However, he wasn't able to offer much in terms of clarity about what or even if the movie is happening. Or when asked if the film will carry on from the events of Multiverse of Madness, he simply exclaimed, "Who knows?" The conversation then pivoted to the other movie we might see Doctor Strange appear in, Avengers 5, formerly Avengers Kang Dynasty, but the actor was as in the dark about the former Sorcerer Supreme's return as we all are, commenting, quote, "We will see. We'll find out. I'm not sure where he's been and what he's been up to and who with, but yeah, I know as little as you do." While Marvel Studios is known for its secrecy, the lack of updates surrounding Doctor Strange 3 and the title character's return to the MCU are a bit disheartening for fans, considering it's been 2 years since the film came out. The post-credit scene of that movie saw Charlize Theron make her MCU debut as Klee, one of Stephen Strange's love interests and the most trusted allies in the comics, as the character pulled him back into the multiverse to stop an incursion that he seemingly caused. With this being the multiverse era, it was looking like Doctor Strange would have a bigger role in the franchise. But again, it's been 2 years since he appeared, and that has understandably left fans worried about the lack of clarity surrounding his return. The ending of Doctor Strange 3 in the Multiverse of Madness told us all that the character would return, and there's no doubt that he will at some point. Marvel isn't one for dropping characters or storylines, and Stephen Strange's adventures have proven to be a lucrative investment for them. The thing that makes fans nervous, however, is the studio's recent strategy shift, which has seen them adopt a less is more strategy going forward. With less releases than initially planned for phases 5 and 6, could that mean that Doctor Strange 3 could be taken off the calendar altogether? Could Strange's story instead be incorporated into Avengers 5 or Avengers Secret Wars? That might explain why there haven't been any updates about it 2 years after its predecessor arrived in movie theaters. Logically, Marvel might just go back to the drawing board to rework how and when they want a third Doctor Strange movie to fit into the MCU. The second movie was a huge box office success, nearing the 1 billion mark and grossing over 300 million more than its predecessor. So there is definitely scope for another one. However, the movie received incredibly mixed reviews, and it was one of the first examples of how Phase 4 wasn't delivering satisfying payoffs. With that in mind, the less is more era could actually be a good thing, allowing Marvel to take a bit of time with Doctor Strange 3. Perhaps this story doesn't need to take place prior to the next Avengers movie. Maybe it could come out between the two. Or heck, maybe it could still come out in whatever its original planned slot was. With Marvel, you just never know what's going on, with the studio evolving more quickly now to make up for a few lackluster outings. That shift may or may not impact Doctor Strange 3. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I mean, they'll definitely do another one. I guess the question is, will this take place before the next Avengers movie or after? And at this point, it looks like it would probably be after. But they could probably always do something. And Adega says, "What the thing is, he did what he's supposed to do for." Oh, you're talking about Pelts? Yeah, yeah. I mean, he profited, so I guess if you mean Pelts, yeah, I guess he did what he should have done. But you could say the same thing about Iger or maybe you mean Chapek. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about Star Wars here for a minute. Okay. And this is from Polygon.com. George Lucas reiterates Star Wars is for 12-year-olds, calls out mean critics. Star Wars creator George Lucas took the stage at Star Wars Celebration today to remind people that the series has always been for children. Lucas told actor Warwick Davis, who was moderating the event's opening panel, that Star Wars was always intended to be enjoyed by 12-year-olds. He went on to admonish critics for being mean and talk about what Star Wars stands for in his mind. Friendship, honesty, it says honestly, but I think they mean honesty, trust, doing the right thing, living on the right side, and avoiding the dark side, Lucas said. Those are the things it was meant to do. Lucas said that while certain fans and critics can be overly critical of the movies, with the prequel trilogy garnering overwhelmingly negative attention in particular, well, not as much as the frickin' sequel trilogy, but I guess he didn't have a involvement with that. Seeing children enjoy the movies that he's created is a reminder of why he started to begin with. Lucas brought up a memory from shooting a scene from one of the prequel movies in Spain and seeing the thousands of Star Wars fans lined up to meet him. There were all these tiny kids, Lucas said. They were all reaching their hands out and they had no idea what was happening, but they all wanted to touch my hand. That's all I ever wanted. It reminds me of why I continue to do it. So, I mean, I think that's interesting because I think there has been back and forth over the years about, oh, you meant pelts? Yeah. Okay. About, whether or not Star Wars is intended for children or not. And I mean, I think that says it pretty clearly. I do think, I remember when the prequels came out and a lot of people, were not happy with them. Like they didn't like Jar Jar in particular. And I'd be lying if I said I was a bit disappointed with the prequels, partly because they were so kind of childish, for lack of a better term, particularly Phantom Menace. But, I it just seemed to me like a lot of fans, particularly fans around my age, who grew up with the original trilogy, just didn't seem to understand or just didn't want to understand that Lucas was trying to get a new generation. He was trying to hook a new generation of people, a new generation of kids. Because he had us already, he's like he already had, we were already in the bag for this stuff, and he was going after a new young generation of fans, and a lot of people just didn't seem to like that. Um, okay, let me go with this next one here. What is it, 7:40? So I'll do this story, then maybe one more, and that'll probably be it. Okay, this is from The Hollywood Reporter. Sony Pictures to use AI to produce movies and shows, quote, in more efficient ways. And I'm pretty sure, I believe I did a video on my channel about a year ago that was talking about something like this, that Sony was planning to leverage AI in their movie making process. Sony Pictures is embracing generative artificial intelligence to cut costs. Chief Executive Tony Vinciquerra, hope I'm saying that right, at an investor conference in Japan said on Thursday that the company is, quote, very focused on AI and mobilizing to adopt the technology into the movie making process to streamline production. Quote, we'll always be looking at ways to use AI to produce films for theaters and television in more efficient ways, using AI primarily, Vinciquerra said. In the backdrop of the comments on ongoing negotiations between Hollywood's major crew union and top studios on a new contract, which is set to expire on July 31st. Okay. So don't be surprised if we get another strike this summer. But this time with the crew union. Like the actors and writers strikes, guardrails on the use of AI have emerged as a key negotiating point. Since the resolutions of the work stoppages last year, buzzy AI tools like OpenAI's text to video model Sora have created anxiety in Hollywood that they could undermine labor from crew members and talent. Union protections have surfaced as the principal barrier to displacement. Vinciquerra's comments signal that studios are looking to further deploy the technology and are only constrained by their contracts with unions. Quote, the agreements that came out of last year's strikes and the agreements that will come out of the IATSE and Teamster negotiations will define roughly what we do with AI, he said. Last year, DreamWorks founder Jeffrey Katzenberg predicted that AI will cut the cost of animated movies by as much as 90% as the tech is positioned to disrupt the media and entertainment industries, pointing to the good old days when a world-class animated film took 500 artists 5 years to create. He said that it, quote, won't take 10% of that 3 years from now. A study surveying 300 leaders across the entertainment sector issued in January found that AI is killing jobs in Hollywood with little relief on the horizon. The report said that 3/4 of respondents indicated that AI tools supported the elimination, reduction, or consolidation of jobs at their companies. Voice actors, concept artists, and workers in visual effects and other post production work were found to be particularly vulnerable. Cinematographer Catherine Brillhart, visual production supervisor for Fallout, Rebel Moon, and Black Adam, stressed AI tools' potential to streamline VFX. Quote, it's advancing the craft, she said at AI on the Lot, a conference on how studios can adopt AI in May. I can teach myself skills at a faster rate than I ever have before. I can think about workflows in different ways. Sony Pictures is coming off Madame Web's flop at the box office, which wiped out plans for a new franchise. Morbius was a bust, blah, 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 etc. Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and look, but I believe like last summer I did a story specifically on how Sony was planning to use AI. So about a year later or so, maybe a little less than a year, we're seeing that they are doing that. And actually, earlier today on my channel, I did put out a video about a new tool that an AI tool that allows you to generate an animated show from prompts, a cartoon from prompts, basically, because they already mentioned in this article specifically how it's affecting animation in particular, and it's called Showrunner, and you can. It's in a testing phase right now. I don't think it's going to be available to the general public until late this year. But you can sign up to be an early adopter and get access to it. I've signed up to it. I haven't. I don't know when I will get access. It did say on the website that it's a pretty long wait because they've got over like 50,000 people waiting to get access to this thing. So we'll see. But I would ask, if you're interested in the subject, do go check out my video on that, which I just put that out maybe 2-3 hours ago. And so it's 7:47. Okay, I guess I will go ahead and call it there. And Adega says stupidity is killing Hollywood jobs. AI is just filling in. Yeah, I mean, you can certainly make that argument. I think that, it was a process that was going to happen anyway, but Hollywood has accelerated the process with, their approach to filmmaking, with all the political messaging that they're putting in that a lot of people don't like. And then, of course, the pandemic didn't help. And then the strikes, which were just, I mean, I understand why those people decided to strike and felt they had to, but it was at the worst possible time. And it's really accelerated this process any further. The Writers Guild and Directors Guild and all these, and the crews and all that, they're in a losing battle because, even if they strike, all they're going to do is hasten the process that was going to happen anyway, really. And like I say, they mentioned in that article that the Hollywood crews, like the grounds crews, they could be having their contract is going to be up, I guess, at the end of July. So don't be surprised if we see another strike this summer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. And thank you to those who tuned in for the stream and those who will check it out on a rewatch later. And I hope you all have a good evening. And I'll see you all. I will be doing a live stream Tuesday. I'll be doing my Trek talk again as usual. I will be taking a look at another episode of the original series of Star Trek. I believe the next episode is going to be The Conscience of the King is what that'll be. So I'll see you Tuesday evening, and until then, have a good night.